Good morning, Dom Palayo checking in with you guys. Today's Sunday, June 15th, halfway through June. Once we're all the way through June, we're halfway through the year, so it's time is marching on here a little bit. How you guys feeling out there today? I don't know about you, but it really feels like, I always notice this. When you have a Democrat president, typically you don't have all this chaos, and it's because the Democrats feel like, well, we're in power, so we're okay. But as soon as they get out of power and the other party is in charge and they don't have control, oh, we got to flip out and riot and loot and, and it really is, they just want power. It's all about the power for them. They want to be the ones in control, and if they're not, they're going to cause hell. They're going to cause chaos. That's what they do. Republicans in the meanwhile, we weren't enthused about Joe Biden. We didn't like the Biden presidency at all. But you didn't see Republicans out here tearing up cities. We don't do that. It's just something to think about. Anyway, I think for me it's one more reason to keep them out of power, because until they learn how to deal with the other party being in control, they don't deserve to be in power. So to me, what Trump has been trying to do, Trump, these were the campaign promises he made, was to begin clearing out some of the. Now, I think Republicans are going to have to be a little realistic when it comes to. We're never going to remove the 10, 15, 20 million people that are here illegally. It's just never going to happen. So for me personally, if we can get the criminal element out, talking about the ones that are committing other crimes besides being in our country illegally, if we can get those people out, start with the people that have been here 10, 15, 20 years, and if we can, especially the ones, this is going to sound, it irks me a little bit that that some of the Latinos, many of the Latinos that are here, refuse to learn English. Many people know I'm bilingual. I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. I had 3 years of high school Spanish in high school, but I went to Spain. I was living in Spain for 2 years, and I picked up Spanish while I was living there. And it only took me, like, literally, I think I began speaking Spanish within about 6 months of moving to the country, where I started feeling comfortable having conversations with other people in Spanish. English is a little bit harder of a language to learn, and you do have to kind of know some of the rules, but when they've been living here 10, 15, 20 years and they still cannot speak English, something's wrong. I'm sorry. Something's wrong. What it is they all stay in their own. They're trying to build Mexico here. They're trying to bring their communities here, live in their communities in little Mexicos here in the United States, and they just don't try. They don't want to try to learn English. And we've had other people, other cultures come to the United States before. You had Germans, you had Italians, you had Irish, you had people from other parts of the world come to the United States in the 19th century, especially. And those people, when they came here, not only did they learn our language, but they also changed their names. They didn't keep their native names. They actually kind of anglicized their names to be easier to pronounce in English. You don't have that with the Hispanics. They want to bring their whole thing here. They basically want to turn the United States into Mexico, I think. At least portions of the United States. I think a big part of this whole thing is they feel like especially the American Southwest belongs to Mexico, and they're going to just come in and repopulate it and take it over. I don't think that's going to go very well for them, but I do think that we got to start getting control of this situation. And, I think that with the Latinos that come here that are just trying to work for a better life for their families, that are not dependent on government assistance, that are working hard and providing for their families, that are not causing a ruckus, not causing problems here in our country. Okay, it's like we do need some immigrant labor here in the United States. We don't have enough. We have a labor shortage. I mean, if it was just American labor, we would have a major labor shortage. So we do need some immigrant labor. For that reason, it's like the Latinos that are here, that are doing things the right way outside of their residency status. If they're not committing other crimes, if they're not doing drugs or pushing drugs on other people, if they're not using questionable means to earn money, because I'm going to be honest with you guys, a lot of these Latinos are doing kind of crooked, shady crap to earn money here in the United States. And a lot of them are on government assistance. They'll swear that they aren't, but I've seen it firsthand. I worked for a clinic here in my local area right after I got out of college, and the clinic was just completely wall-to-wall Hispanics, and a lot of it was a medical clinic, and I was just doing interpreting. I was doing translation work, and all of these patients, a lot of them were women that were coming in there, and they were pregnant, and they're all getting WIC. They're all getting different helps on the system, free lunches for their kids at school, even though at the same time their family has a $60,000, $70,000 car. It's just like, come on, that's happening. That is absolutely 100% happening, and I know it's happening, and that kind of stuff's got to stop, and it needs to end right now. So the United States has a $37 trillion debt. We need to get it under control, and our annual deficit under control. And a lot of these blue states are not helping the situation, trying to take care of all these people. No, that needs to be nipped in the bud. If they want to stay here and work and be law-abiding residents of our country, okay, that's one thing. But if they're here to try to reclaim Mexico, or if they're here to try to cause problems for us, they need to go home and make their countries better, improve their situation in their home countries. That's the way I see this whole thing. That's where I'm at. So, I know not everybody's on the right side of the aisle isn't agreeing. Some Republicans want all of them to go back home. I think I understand the sentiment of it, but I don't think it's realistic, number one. Number two, we do need immigrant labor in the United States. I think that our government should have control over how many we allow in. The people that we are allowing in, we need to know who they are, what their backgrounds are. If they've got criminal records in Mexico, we don't need them here. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think that's a good, center right position where I'm at with that, and I feel comfortable with that. Anyway. Eventually, the thing about the Hispanics is that their kids, the children, are learning English. Most of the children can speak English. And I do think that situation is going to gradually get better. It's going to be like when the Italians came here, or when the Irish came here, or when the Germans came here. You know, they're the first generation to the ones that moved here. You know, it was a little bit harder for them because they didn't natively speak the language, and they had to. It took some time for them to learn. But their kids became part of American society, and they're a part of our culture today. No problem. You know, it's one thing to have your culture here, your heritage here, but you don't see too many Americans waving British flags. I don't go around. My ancestry comes from England and Scotland. I don't own it. I've never owned a British flag. I've never owned a Scottish flag. I've always had the American flag. It's fine to celebrate parts of your culture. I mean, we have St. Patrick's Day, and some people, we wear green on St. Patrick's Day, little things like that. But we're not hanging up our ancestral flags here. We're not trying to turn this into another part of. In fact, we rebelled against our former, motherland. England. We rebelled against them and said, we want to do our own thing, and that's what we're doing. That's what America's done. It's really hard to understand these Latinos that want to live here in the United States. They don't want to go back to their home countries, but yet they're trying their best to turn our country into their home country. And it's like they don't want to live back in their home country. I don't really understand that. It's like that is a little bit odd to me, but I think what it boils down to is they just want the American money. They want to come here, earn money, and send it back home where they can, where they'll be able to, save and have a big chunk of money later on. Trying to help their families back home and all of that stuff too. And while I understand the predicament they are in Mexico, that's not fair to the American people. We want people that are living here that are loyal to the United States, not to Mexico. And I don't think there's any loyalty, very little loyalty among the Latinos for America, for the United States. It's about Mexico with these people. So that's kind of where I'm at on this whole issue. We've been seeing an uptick in violence. I mentioned the politicians that were shot yesterday in Minnesota. Israel and Iran is popping off. I think that's going to get worse. I would expect to see gas prices exceeding $4 a gallon. Maybe even in here in my area. I know some parts of the country it's already well over $4. I know in California it might even be over $5 a gallon. Here in North Carolina, I just bought gas, and I got my tank at $2.88. So a gallon for regular. So I'm thinking it's going to increase by maybe about a third from where it is right now. We'll see how it plays out, but I don't like seeing the all of this escalate the way it is. Russia, Ukraine, we haven't heard too much about it lately because of everything else going on, but that's still a problem. The whole world's on fire right now. Again, like I mentioned yesterday, I think it's important that we're all very careful. There's a possibility, Iran is not real happy with us right now. There's a very good possibility that since we've had this open border problem for so long, there's a very good chance that we have sleeper cells here in the United States of Islamists who they're just waiting for their orders to go, just like the 9/11 attackers when that happened. They were in the country for 5 years before 9/11 happened, and I'm sure that we probably have some of those people here, and they're planning their next move here here on our soil. So we all need to be a little careful. Most Americans are pretty financially stressed these days. That always correlates with an uptick in crime, petty theft, but sometimes people can be on edge and get violent. So we all need to be careful. I think that it's going to be an interesting week in the markets. I'm kind of looking. We'll probably see stocks decline. I imagine we'll see a further decline on the markets tomorrow. I'm expecting to see commodities continue to do well, to outperform the stock market. So I expect we'll probably see a continued uptick in oil. Oil was up like 6-7% on Friday. We might see that continue, especially now that Iran and Israel have been firing at each other. So we'll see what happens. I am in Walkertown. I'm getting ready to go over to my parents' house. It's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I'm blessed with 2 daughters that it's crazy how fast they've grown up. It feels like it was just yesterday that they were little, and my oldest daughter's 20 now, and that just is crazy to me, but it is what it is. I'm getting old, and I'm feeling old a little bit. I drove when I drove back from Florida the other day. I had to drop a friend off in Orlando, and then I drove all the way back to Winston-Salem, North Carolina from Orlando, and it was, I drove total of like 12 hours, from Jacksonville down to Orlando to Winston. It was a lot of driving. I'm still kind of feeling that. I don't typically drive that much, so I'm kind of feeling it. You guys have a great day. I hope everyone is doing well. Again, continue to stock up on things as you can, even if it's just a few extra cans of food, vegetables, soups, different, things that can sustain you during a difficult time. I think it's a good idea to have at least 2 weeks worth of food in your house. Food, maybe water too. I was thinking about water. I've got 2 weeks worth of food in my house, but I don't have, in terms of backup water. It's like kind of lean there, so I need to work on that. Water is one of those things. It's very hard to store it because it's heavy and it takes up a lot of space. So I think if you have enough water for 2 weeks, and then just have a bunch of water purification stuff, I think you'll be okay. The water purification stuff would be for a longer term crisis situation. Filters, tablets. They've got iodine tablets that you can use to purify water. So anyway, things I'm thinking about. I don't think we're quite at that point yet, and I do stress yet. I think the next 10 years are going to make or break America. I really do feel that way. I'm glad that Trump is in office right now, because I do feel like we have the right people in leadership to get us out of this situation. But America needs, we need to get some of the troublemakers out of our country. We need to get some of our citizen troublemakers either behind bars or, I don't know. I don't know what to do with some of these leftists. It's like, especially the ones that are rioting and burning cities and committing violence. They need to be behind bars. That's the way I look at it. If you're causing destruction, if you're destroying property and you're doing things like that, you need to be behind bars. That's my viewpoint on it. You have a right to peacefully protest. You don't have a right to riot and destroy property. And if you're doing that, you need to be behind bars. So that's my outlook on it. You guys let me know what you think. Subscribe, like and subscribe. Trying to build this channel as best I can. It's slow going, but I've only been doing this for a few months. So, it is what it is. I kind of enjoy just putting this out here and putting my thoughts out here. And I will talk to you guys soon. Enjoy your Sunday.